So I just wanted to talk about replayability versus longevity, and in terms of retro and current gen. And I thought this was going to be more or less a straight up topic to talk about, but it's not quite as simple as I originally thought when I really started thinking about it. And I can really only talk about it from my experience of the games that I've played, because I think, to be honest, it would probably vary both on retro and modern, depending on the games that people have played. So where do I start? Okay, so retro wise, if we go back to when I was younger, I wasn't into RPGs. I don't think I even knew what an RPG was. I'm pretty sure I'd heard of role playing and all that, but never played any games like that really. I loved platformers, racing games, arcade games, shooting games, adventure games. I suppose one of the there's a couple of games that I can think of where I really played them over and over again. In terms of replayability, I just never got bored of them. One would be Sonic the Hedgehog on the Master System. It it wasn't really a hard game, to be honest with you. I can still complete that game now. I can still remember where all the hidden lives are. I can still remember where all the crystals are. I really, really played that game over and over and over again, kept going back to it all the time. And the fact that I could keep completing it didn't take any enjoyment out of it. It, in fact, made it really enjoyable because I knew that I'd have fun playing it and that it was completable. One of the few games for me when I was a kid that I actually completed. The other one was Alex the Kid in Miracle World. Loved that game. It was built into my Master System and it was friggin' hard. I could only get up to the first forest level, which is after the volcano. And the game was made easier if you did the cheat where you could see when you did the jank matches with some of the bosses. It was made easier where if you did the cheat, you could see what they was going to choose. But even so, I could never get past the forest bit. But something about that game, I just kept going back and back and back, and I knew I'd never get past that first forest. I didn't care. I just kept going back to it. I'm just trying to think of some other games. Kept going back to Earthworm Jim 2 on the SNES, Desert Strike, Jungle Strike. I played those over and over again. Desert Fighter, completed that God knows how many times. In terms of the games that I played back in the day, oh yeah, Street Fighter, Operation Wolf, I only ever completed that game once, and was never able to complete it again because could always get to the last level, could never do the last level. It was so hard at the end. I did it once, but never did it again. But kept going back to it. I think with games when I was younger, okay, there was the factor of that I didn't have much money. I only got games on my birthday and Christmas, and it took a long time to build up to the point where I did have a lot of games. And the only two systems where I really had tons and tons of games was the Master System and the Game Boy. Those was the only two systems where I had friggin' loads of games. In fact, I was playing the Master System probably right up until probably about 1996, 1997. I still kept playing it right up until that point. Still was buying games as well for it. But the one thing that really sticks out in my mind in terms of longevity and replayability is I wouldn't say the games were necessarily very long. I mean, the game that was probably the longest out of all of them in terms of length was possibly the Strike games and Um, Sonic the Hedgehog, probably Alex Kidd in Miracle World, but I never got to fully complete that. So yeah. But the overriding thing about all that is the replayability. I've never gone back to play so many games over and over and over again, time and time again on so many different games than at any other period in time really. Back in the 8 and 16-bit games, the replayability factor on the games was really, really high. I think some games did have the length there. I mean, you could spend. I know there were games that were hitting 30 hours in certain genres, RPGs and stuff, probably. But I mean, in terms of replayability, the replayability factor was really, really high back in the day. Obviously, for a lot of reasons, These days, I don't. In terms of current gen, I'd say from the 32-bit days onwards, so you're talking PS2, Xbox onwards, up until now, and probably going into the next generation, there's not so much replayability there, I don't think. When I think of games that I've gone back to the most this generation, the first one I think of is, in terms of replayability, the first Mass Effect game. I've completed that game 4 times. It was just brilliant game, spot on, perfect, love it. And I've just gone back to it 4 times and never been bored. And I do plan on playing that again and playing up through all 3 games in a row. I'm going to do that pretty soon, probably. So yeah, I'll probably play through that a 5th time. I'm just trying to think of. Oh yeah, Call of Duty 2 and Call of Duty 4. Funny that, because I don't like the Call of Duty games anymore. They've kind of, yeah, they're just not really hitting the spot anymore. Call of Duty World at War was pretty good, but after that, meh. Yeah, but Call of Duty 2, I really did play Call of Duty 2 quite a lot, and I think I've played that. I can't say how many times I've replayed that game, but it's got to be more than 4 times. Call of Duty 2, I played it through twice. No, Call of Duty 4, I played that through twice. I'm just trying to think of any other games that I might have played again. I do remember wanting to play Fable 2 again, and I'd like to play Fable 2 again, but it's the save system that puts me off. You only get one save system slot thing, so to start again it would be like wiping the slates clean and starting again. You can't save in one slot and then another, because it doesn't give you slots, so that's kind of put me off playing through that game again. Another game that I wanted to go back and play again is Halo ODST, because I love that game, but again I haven't actually got around to replaying it again. Sonic Generations, I've played that quite a bit. I've not necessarily played it through, but I've kept going back to it. Certain levels and that I've really liked, I kept playing over and over again. I don't think there's any more games that I've really kept going back to. I suppose multiplayer wise, that's where the most replayability comes from these days, the multiplayer. But in terms of single player, the games that I've just mentioned are the only ones I can think of where I've just literally kept going back. I think Call of Duty's probably been quite high for the single player parts of the games where I've kept going back. Obviously, multiplayer wise, Battlefield and Call of Duty again are right up there. But in terms of single player, I don't think there's any more games that I've really played over and over again, other than the ones I've just mentioned. So excluding multiplayer, because we all know that that's where people are going to keep going back these days. Specifically talking about single player this gen, the replayabilities of phones is quite low, but now that things like platform games are starting to make a comeback, I think with me playing more platform games this generation, probably the replayability is going to go up quite a bit. I think longevity wise and the length of games, this generation is probably higher than obviously in the past, because obviously you got games like Fallout and Oblivion, which is just massive. And then there's Red Dead Redemption and loads of other RPGs like Fable 2, that was pretty long as well. And just trying to think of some other games. Yeah, so Deus Ex. There's plenty of games that you could pick this generation. The length wise is just astronomical compared to the old days. And yeah, like I said, replayability in single player games is quite low, and the length of the games is quite high. And like I said, in terms of back in the day, it was the other way around. I think the length wasn't always there so much as replayability was a hell of a lot higher. So yeah, I think that's going to probably vary, like I said, depending on what games people have played. But yeah, pretty interesting to think about that now, that I can't say that I've gone back to the single player in a lot of the games this gen, and apart from the odd one or two. But like I said, with games like platformers making a bit of a comeback, that might change. So yeah, be nice to hear other people's experiences and stuff. So yeah, I thought that would be an interesting topic to throw out there, and like to hear what everyone else thinks.